Hi, welcome to the Creative Treehouse. My name is Robin Broom, and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States. Thanks for joining me in the Treehouse today. Today's project is very similar to the one that we did last week, where we were doing split for stamping. And this week we're going to do split for stamping, but we're going to add some dies to it. So I guess we should call it split for stamping with dies. So let's get started. We will be using the most amazing Forever Fern set that comes from the new Stampin' Up! Catalog, the new annual catalog. It has absolutely stunning, gorgeous leaves. The detail is just amazing. And then there are 4 sentiments, and we're going to be using all 4 sentiments and most of the leaves. All right, we are going to start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and it's going to be cut at 10 1/4 by 7 3/4. Now we're going to score it at 5 1/8 and 3 7/8. And you could use pencil lines. I think you don't have to worry about erasing or whatever if you just score it. And we will end up with 4 cards, which is just a great use of our resources, I think. All right, we're going to be using the colors we will be using are Shaded Spruce, Pretty Peacock, Old Olive, and Soft Seafoam. We will also be using the dies that go with the set, and we will be using 2 of these, and it's from the Forever Flourishing die set, and you can get them in a bundle right now for 10% off. So let's start by stamping, and we're going to start with our Old Olive, and we will be using this particular stamp. There are 2 of these in the set, and one is turned one way and one turned slightly the other way. Okay, the only difference in today's project is we are starting from the center and going out, but we need to leave room for our dies in the middle. So we're going to start with about maybe 1/3 of the way down one of the axes and put our stamps on. And we are trying to keep our stems pretty close to the score line. I just don't want a stem sticking way out somewhere, more in the center. All right, and now we're going to change and we're going to move, I think I'll close up the Old Olive and we'll move to the Soft Seafoam color. And for Soft Seafoam, we're going to use the one that looks a lot like, to me, like a eucalyptus. And it has 2 branches on it, and I'm going to go on either side of the score line with that branch, with each of the branches, so kind of split in the middle. Because this one is a lighter color, you can stamp and kind of stamp right over your Old Olive or other colors, and it's not going to matter as much. So, okay, and then I'm also going to put some sort of towards the center. They'll be pretty much covered up with the dies that we're going to do, but just in case there's a little bit of overlap. All right, that's the Soft Seafoam. We'll close that one up. Now we're going to move to our dies, and like I said, we use those 2, and I'm going to show you a trick that I learned when I had the dies, and I had cut out multiple ones before I realized the purpose of these 2 holes right there. Perhaps you already know the purpose. I just assumed that they were to help you poke the paper out, to pop the paper out of the die, and perhaps that is it, but I also discovered that if you line up the stamp to where you can see the ink in the stem, you can see the ink in both of those holes. It's not there right now. Let me see if I can move it to where you can see it. If you get it to both of those holes, then you will stamp it correctly. I don't know if you can probably not see, but you can see the ink in those 2 holes. If you do not line them up correctly, then you will end up with something like this, where the stem is kind of off to the side. So anyway, that was a tip that I learned. Maybe I'm kind of slow to the party, but I thought it was pretty cool. And I magnetic platform helps also a lot with that. Okay, so I ended up cutting out, stamping and cutting out probably about 6 of each of these. I did this one in Shaded Spruce and this one in Pretty Peacock. And we're just going to take those. I put the mini Stampin' Dimensionals on the back, and we're just going to take them and we're going to apply them kind of in the center. Now for this one, the long leafy one, I think the stem is a little bit long for what we're doing, so I've trimmed it off for the most part. And then we've got the Pretty Peacock. We're just gonna kind of maybe reach and tuck it in a little. Okay, and then just go around the same way. This one has already been trimmed off. And just kind of alternate with the Shaded Spruce and the Pretty Peacock. And they can overlap onto the other card. And again, I think I will trim that one off just a touch. Get it in here. And I think this one will end up being definitely, I think I'm going to trim that one off just a touch. Okay. And this one's going to be cut. I think I'll do it pretty much right in half. Okay. And then one more of the Shaded Spruce, and put it about there. And I think we'll do one more of the Pretty Peacock, and we'll put it right about there. Okay, then we've got all of those down. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to get our paper trimmer, and we're going to trim right along the score lines. So on the long end, we will be scoring at 5 1/8. So we'll move our paper to 5 1/8. And we'll take our trimming blade and we'll go back and forth. Add just a little bit of pressure. Be sure you've really gotten it. You can kind of tug on the edge and see if it went all the way through. There it did. All right, and we'll turn it and we'll score on the 3 7/8. And again, just add a little bit of pressure, go a couple of times through. And the same thing with this one as well. 3 7/8. Feels like it, yep, it did. So now we end up with 4 cards and a lot of little extra pieces. And we'll just, let me slip those off to the side. And then we'll take our 4 and we'll decide. I lay them out and I decide if I would like them to be portrait or landscape, which one would look the best. And I usually end up with 2 of one and 2 of another. I'm trying to decide here. It doesn't, I think I'll go with this. Okay, and we've got the 4 sentiments, like I said. So we'll take our Memento ink, and I'll start with the long one, the Love and Laughter, Forever After. And I'll pick one of those that is more landscape, and I think this one. And we'll just line that up, and I think right there. Okay, and then we'll get another one, probably the next largest one. It's a little bit longer. Is To a Friend That Makes Me Smile. And let's try that one here. These are very pretty fonts. Okay, so we've got those 2. Let's move to the next ones. And then we have You Can Do This. That's just fun. All right, and we'll put that one here. And then the very last one is a short one, a little bit different font as well. It's the Hello. So we'll put the Hello in here. Okay, and then we'll do the dots. I didn't do the dots earlier because I like to kind of determine where my sentiment is before I do the little dots that come in the stamp set. And I will be using the Pretty Peacock for that one. I love the Pretty Peacock color. Okay, so we'll use our little dots and we'll just kind of go sort of on the edges. And we can stamp off as well if we needed to. All right, moving on. And this just adds just more dimension to it. And as well as the die cuts. The die cuts add dimension to it also. So then you've got those four, and that's, like I said, just a great use of your time and resources. And then what we're doing is I double matted, and that's why our dimensions are slightly different than they were. So I used Pear Pizzaz, and I cut it at 5 1/4 by 4, so it'll line up with just a tiny bit of border. And then the Pretty Peacock, and it is cut at 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So you end up with that. Let me temporarily mat one more so that you can get a good idea. And I'm going to hold one of them up to so that you can kind of tilt it just a little bit so that you can see the difference with the dimension. I think you can see it a little bit. So it makes a difference. So that is what it would look like with the dimensionals, or not with the dies. And I think it does makes a difference. Would be a tiny bit more time consuming than the project that we did last week, but I think it's well worth it, and more for not your beginner, but maybe a little bit leaning more towards your avid stamper. So thank you so much for joining me for this project. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll give it a try. I also hope that you will, after having watched the video, that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is a fairly new channel, and I'm trying to get more and more subscribers, and I'm slowly reaching my goal. I'm very excited, so I would just love it. It would tickle me to death if you would subscribe to the channel. So thanks very much. Thanks for joining me in the treehouse, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.